Hello, welcome again to the Littles Road Lockdown Cocktail Bar. It's also a kitchen. Oh, I'm in the middle of cooking dinner for Nairi. Hold on. We're having steamed mussels tonight, but let's get back to cocktails. And the reason that I didn't do these two particular drinks is for the lack of a maraschino cherry. Now that you can easily go out to the supermarket, you can do this. These are two very simple, basic North American drinks. One's an old-fashioned and one's a Manhattan. There's not a heck of a lot of difference, quite frankly, between the two. One's usually or traditionally done with American bourbon. The other is more traditionally done with Canadian Club. It was a bourbon drink, but following the Prohibition or during the Prohibition in the 1920s or thereabouts, American whiskey was harder to get. They brought it across the border, and that's why we have Canadian Club in the Manhattan. So let's go first to the old-fashioned. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Put a couple of cubes of ice in an old-fashioned glass, which, quite frankly, traditionally used to look like this, straight up, but I couldn't find a nice one, and it's a bit bigger. The drink would have looked a bit silly in that. So this is a slightly different version of it. So American whiskey, traditionally bourbon, and bourbon is traditionally a corn-based drink. So it's bourbon. It is a little bit of what we now call at home tui water. It's sugar syrup, Angostura bitters. Give it a little muddle with the spoon, and decorate it with a rind of orange and a maraschino cherry. And having all these things organised now is what in the chef trade was called mise en place. Means being organised in a minute. There we go. Easy cocktail. Nairi, as you've heard from the last few days, is a gin and a vodka drinker. She's not too much into bourbon and whiskey, so I think that's mine. We'll come back in a minute for the old-fashioned. Cheers. Right. We're now on to the second one, which is a Manhattan. A Manhattan was an American bourbon type drink, and as I said, during the Prohibition era, bourbon was a little bit hard to get, so they went to Canadian whiskey. And Canadian whiskey's a little bit different. The American whiskies traditionally was corn based, whereas Canadian whiskey can be barley and rye based. So the Manhattan had Canadian Club, had sweet vermouth, and it didn't have a heck of a lot more, quite frankly. It's about the simplest that you can get. And again, you simply muddle it. You stick it with a maraschino cherry. And notice it's the maraschino cherry that I'm particularly interested in, because the old-fashioned is just about gone, but so is the maraschino cherry. And away you go, a straight drink there. Nothing's much more straightforward than that. Hopefully real estate might become this Thursday, because we are allowed to go back into what's called level 2, where we were much more easily able to practice the art or the trade of real estate. And either Chelsea or I look forward to being able to help you with your real estate inquiries. So until we meet again on Thursday, I hope you have a happy day, and cheers. Here's to a Manhattan. Kind of wish.